Hello, my name is Benjamin Brown, and today is Saturday, October 29th, 2022. I was born May 1st, 1989, in a hospital in East Los Angeles to Marina Marcial and to Thomas Eugene Brown. Um, I've made a couple of video video logs, journal entries with what is happening and everything that's going on. Somebody's making it rather difficult for me to express myself in a notebook, more than likely because it needs to be buried or because they're attempting to bury the information that I am recording, um, so that they're capable of like erasing me from current history or from anything that might expose potential conspiracies or undermine any attempt to assert power and control on a social or political level. I write occasionally, I write in journals occasionally, I write poetry occasionally, because I'm constantly harassed by government psychic ghost agents. I'm always having my writing and my drawings and everything influenced. Um, I'm not particularly illiterate, but I have the capacity to be literate, and I'm also restrained from reading and truly devoting myself to studying the way that I would wish I could, and the wish that in the manner in which I wish I could. I'm being restrained from pursuing an education in the available school systems. I come initially from what seems to be a lower middle class family or upper lower class family. My father was a teacher who taught at a school in Bell Gardens, and he studied at Michigan State University, where he got to go on a football scholarship. And he graduated and he got his master's, and and that's part of the reason why I came out with a relatively decent foundation, capable of reading and writing. My mathematical skills were inhibited and restrained due to some experiences that I had when I went to a Catholic school in Montebello called St. Benedict's. Um, and ever since St. Benedict's, I'd always struggled with multiplications, and because I'd always struggled with multiplication, I also studied, or I also had problems learning division and long division and long equation. And and part of the reason that I'm recording this video log is because I'm having trouble writing and recording important facts and details in books, in notebooks, but I'm going to try anyway. Again, I'm going to try to record everything that's happening to me because I'm completely convinced that the memories or the ideas of the lower classes are being completely wiped from history, because it's what me in my current situation, in my current state, am finding it rather difficult to find anything about our recorded history that is particularly reliable. And we also find ourselves in this bizarre moment in time where it is completely capable, or it is in the power of the corrupt ruling aristocracy and hierarchy to replace the native inhabitants of any country, any city, or any population with genetic duplicates of them, or engage the native inhabitants of any city, any country with genetic variants that resemble them. which makes it possible for them to completely remove um, any group of ethnic minority from existence and replace them without causing alarm to neighboring ethnic minorities or ethnic majorities. And not only am I finding it difficult to find anything that's reliable in history, but I'm being put in a situation that is extremely difficult. And the reason that it is difficult is because I'm forced to make choices and decisions without having any reliable information, and where I am being forced to rely on, again, people that have quite possibly infiltrated an oppressive hierarchy or system of government or governance that initially means me harm, but also initially intends to, um, in some way, either create a utopian society or create a society that at the very least appears to be utopian, but simultaneously imposes a will and restraint and, of course, oppression um, through through conditioned systems of belief or conditioned systems of perception or through conditioned states of existence. So, like I said, we're in the year 2022. And from what I know about basic history is America was established by English settlers, and America is a country in the Western Hemisphere, and it's between a country called Canada and Mexico. And it is the 50 different states that were established by English settlers initially. But at some point in time, it became to draw Russian settlers and German settlers and Irish settlers. And all these different European settlers had something in common, which was this religion, which is called Christianity and Catholicism. Christianity and Catholicism. And this is to the best of my knowledge. And the initial inhabitants of America are indigenous Americans, which, from the knowledge that I have gained or I've learned, is a Siberian Asian strain that crossed the Bering Strait at some point in time when it was either actually a landmass or covered with ice. How true those things are, I'm not really capable of understanding or knowing. But as a child, I grew up with my father. It was just me and my father. My father and my mother had gotten divorced early on. But one of my father's hobbies was he was really into antiques, and he would surround himself with things that were old or that were that alluded to the point in time of his life when he was younger. And he grew up on a farm in Michigan, where they basically just grew all their food. They raised livestock. He told me like simple couple of stories of how they used to pick tomatoes and pick strawberries and go door to door and sell them. In fact, that was how he got his money. And he had told me at one point in time that he had been driving a car since he was about 14. I didn't get my license until after my father passed away at the age of 19. But at any rate, he had great work ethic. He studied, obviously. There was a point in time where he was, because he grew up in a small city in Michigan, that he was in part of the ROTC program, which is an American military program which takes high school students and prepares them for military service. But he grew up around the time of the Vietnam War. And he told me this story of how he had this one kid in his life, or this one guy in his life that he really kind of looked up to. And he was really kind of like an important guy to the community there. And everybody kind of looked up to him. And he told this story about like how a cherry bomb went off at a party and he hit the floor, and everybody looked around and kind of laughed at him. But at any rate, the story went that this guy like hung out with his recruiting officer, and his recruiting officer and them made some sort of bet or something, and somehow he wound up re-enlisting and going to Vietnam, and he never went back, or he never came back home. And before he went back to serve in Vietnam, he told my dad, "Whatever you do, Tom, don't go, don't go, don't go. Whatever you do, Tom, don't go." So, so it was, I guess, that essentially what happened. Essentially, that was what happened that grew this kind of division between my father's perception of the military being ideal, or it definitely ruined the military's credibility, the American military's level of credibility in his eyes and in his perception. As far as I know, he was like a draft card burning hippie during his years at Michigan State University. He was knowledgeable, and he was sincere. He's part of the reason that my ideas or my perceptions seem in modern day classes to be associated with ideas that are either liberal or democratic. He was a Democrat, and it was part of the reason that that I had voted Democratic when I still had my capacity to vote. Like, I voted for Democrats primarily because the general idea or the general feeling was that Democrats stood by the rights and stood for the common classes, whereas the rich people, which is the conservative class, have all these levels of power where they're like not forced to pay much taxes, and we have like weakening social structures. Like, our education is actually not as good as it used to be. We're existing in this point in time where somebody is actually launching an assault on the general public, to the point where people are being influenced by psychic ghost agents into being homosexuals. They're being influenced into performing fellatio and cunnilingus, and they are also being influenced into performing sodomy, which it didn't sound completely irrational or illogical, or didn't really seem to be such a big deal to me at one point in time. But my ideals and my values have changed ever since I've actually started studying religion rather faithfully, to the point that I honor the Day of Rest rituals. But currently I am in the process of calling it by something else, simply because I'm uncertain of the word for number 7 in Arabic, which is Saba. But I'm not entirely certain that that is the word for the number 7, and I'm not entirely certain about the Hebrew language and the Arabic language. So basically, what it was that I had heard, or what it was that I had learned, was that the native indigenous population of the Americas in no way, shape, or form performed acts of sodomy or fellatio or cunnilingus or any kind of oral copulation. And part of the reason, as I understand it, was because of the bathing, and because those parts of the human body were not particularly appetizing. But I also know that even early Christians living in America might not have had the same impulses and drive towards indulging those kinds of behaviors as well. Even if they were Christians that had some underhanded agenda to try to harm other people, or harm people in general, or harm black people, or harm Jews, or whatever. There was still this level of social pressure made people less willing to behave like animals, or social pressure that incapacitated people from behaving um, wildly or senselessly. Like I said, it's the year 2022, and as far as I know, I came from a family of English, German, Irish settlers. Uh, Obviously, my last name is Brown, so there has to be some sort of Germanic English association with my last name. I don't know everything that there is to know about my genealogy. I recently found out that I was Arab, which I actually had no idea at all that I was Arab. I had grown up knowing that I was Mexican and that I was German. And apparently I might be part Indian, like from India. I'm not entirely certain. And I might also, I think that I might be some kind of Armenian, and mixed with Hebrew, or some kind of Armenian mixed with Yemeni, or some kind of, or possibly, quite possibly, some generated, fabricated Arab strain. But I remember as a child, my father used to take out pictures of our family. He had like family photos all over the place. And because of ghost technology, and because the population is being artificially inseminated, um, there is a chance that I come from a fabricated genetic pool and not from an organic genetic pool. And it makes things rather difficult for me because of the situation that I'm in, and because of how disastrous and how immense the things that I'm experiencing and going through, and how much pressure there is on me to do something and to act not selfishly, but with benevolent intentions for the social class, the common classes and middle classes that are generally unconnected or incapable of really affecting change on in higher places. Like part of the problem, from what I know, is there's a lot of social disability in the Middle East, and part of it has to do with oil, with resources. There's like a resource war going on. It's part of the reason that the countries of Latin America are occupied. They're taking their oil, and not only are they taking their oil, but they keep the social structure system destabilized in order to profit from drug trafficking. They traffic drugs from Colombia and from Peru across the Mexican border into the United States, which at this point in time is essentially a slave colony, and it's a consumerism slave colony. And because of the welfare system, it is essentially set up a situation where it is a job to essentially be a consumer. And the people that are benefiting from this are not just, American military officials, but the people behind the corporate conglomerates and corporations that produce food and produce clothing and produce textiles and produce basic necessities. But part of modern day slavery at this point in time revolves around consumerism, and revolves around inhibiting a man's capacity to be educated. And also, it's just rather strange. It seems like there's someone who has managed to map out our capacity to enjoy our experience as human beings, and has figured out a way to charge us or manipulate us or inhibit our capacity to enjoy existing. And when I say this, I have to touch a little bit on what it is exactly that's going on here. My personal experiences with things like sex or with things like courtship, all of my values on those kinds of things have completely changed. But there was a point in time where I was just like this modern day adolescent, where I felt like basic courtship practices were like, oh, you'd go out on dates and like you'd fornicate, and then you'd come home, and then like you would talk to that girl for like 6 months, a year or two or whatever. And then like you really wouldn't talk to anybody else, but maybe sometimes you did, and maybe sometimes you didn't, and maybe sometimes there was opportunities where you would talk to someone else, but for the most part you were like generally loyal. But there's this influence through media and movies and modern day like culture, which has created a situation where men and women are really not loyal to each other or faithful to each other, even if they are related. And it is part of the reason that it is impossible for societies to try to undermine the rule of the oppressive social structure that is being imposed upon them. I mean, it's now to the point where the only way that you can survive and survive beneficially and survive happily is if you have enough money. And then even if you have enough money, there's somebody who's influencing you, so your wife isn't that satisfied by, if it's not by the size of your penis, then it's about, they're not as satisfied by your sexual performance because you don't last more than 5 or 15 minutes in bed. And on top of having certain level of security with financially, there's psychic ghost agents that assault your wife by influencing her into thinking about other men, like your neighbors or your cousins or maybe even your bosses, or if she's a working mom, her bosses or people at work or people that stop by her work. and it's to the point now where maybe some people think those things are important and maybe some of those people think they don't. Like I said, there was a point in time where some of those things just sounded rather normal to me. But the fact is that sometime in at the very least, like maybe like the 1920s, things kind of started to change, because I don't really know when homosexuality became like this blatant epidemic, but I know that people weren't behaving as terribly as they do now. And it's something that nobody's really noticed, but people are just really comfortable with things that are completely just senseless, reckless, or not natural. Like, it is not a natural human state to be a homosexual. It is actually something that needs to be influenced. And I guess it has to do with something with the hormones, and it has to do something with bodily functions, but it is not a natural state to be a homosexual, whether you're a woman or whether you're a man. That is something that is the result of an assault. And I'm at this point now, and it's really easy for them to control the information that I receive. I cannot find reliable information at libraries. I cannot find reliable information from documentaries. I cannot find reliable information from places, from anywhere. There's no reliable information in our school systems, because what I was taught in school was that America was established by English settlers, and they actually never mentioned Russian settlers. And they never mentioned a connection to a religious conspiracy, which was devoted to validating religious prophecies. And what it is I find myself at the center of this operation, which is devoted to validating the Revelations prophecy, which really doesn't make sense superficially, because first of all, America is America, and then Babylon the Great is actually, Iraq. But there's all these weird, strange things that are happening with the history of America, and all these strange, bizarre things that are happening with not just the history of America, but in our pop culture or subculture or historical culture. And one of them is like the enslavement of the African people. And African people were enslaved and taken to America to work the cotton fields and to work tobacco fields. And and apparently, simultaneously, all the European settlers were also taken to America to also be slaves, although they had no idea that by participating in the enslavement of the Africans, that they were also participating in their own genetic enslavement, because enslavement has actually changed. And one of the actual true goals of what it is to exist as a living, breathing human thing is to reproduce, but not only to reproduce, but to evolve. And like there's somebody who has meted out and contained our capacity to enjoy our experience here, and is even going so far to inhibit our capacity to enjoy, such as, people chewing their food, putting things in people's food. There's a bunch of people across the globe that are obese or overweight and have no idea that their food is being poisoned with something that makes it impossible for them to work off or work out and burn off. There is there's also at any rate, so America was established for the purpose of validating religious prophecies, and there seems to be like at the center, at the root center of these religious conspiracies seems to be the Vatican, the Roman Catholic Church, and they have some sort of stake in America and some sort of stake in Latin America. And I've visited the Spanish missions in California, where they imposed labor upon the indigenous populations of California, but I'm actually not completely certain how old they are. And part of the reason is because I've heard of this thing called the Wailing Wall in Israel, and I'm completely certain that the Wailing Wall was actually built recently, and have read that when people initially first went to Israel, that Israel was nothing but barren rock. There was the River Jordan and a bunch of like rocky fields, and that the initial reestablishment of the Zionist state of Israel might have been might have been initiated by the same conspiracy that wiped the German Jews out through the act of the Holocaust, which is supposedly that they killed German Jews, and they killed them in Germany, and they killed them in Poland. How true it is that the Germans were responsible for wiping the German Jews out of the German territories and Polish territories and Russian territories, I'm completely uncertain. And in fact, let me go so far as to say that I'm not completely certain of the validity of the existence of the Jewish people, because of the point in time in which I exist, and because of the obstacle and challenge that I'm facing. And so first of all, Israel was established by the same Nazi conspiracy that had wiped out the Arab Armenians or Arab Germans that inhabited those European countries, and they are also responsible somehow underhandedly for the establishment of Israel. And the people that actually live in the territory and country known as Israel aren't necessarily Jews. And what I believe, because I believe that there is in fact this character named David, maybe David's not his name, but at any rate, there has to be some Hebrew king that these people have created this religion to launch an assault on, which is the Christian religion, because the Christian religion basically puts King David at the center of some operation where they offer him up as an offering to a false god, or offer him up as an offering as a means to escape for suffering from their own sins. And there's some connection, even if it's some kind of loose connection, between the Ankh being an Egyptian symbol, Jesus being the Christian myth of Jesus being the tree of life centered in the Garden of Eden. And there, just like there's some sort of connection between the lynching of African Americans in America and the Christian story of them crucifying Jesus. And I've read books that talk about how the whole aspect or purpose of Christianity was to make an offering that they might avoid punishment for their sins. And it is part of the reason that Christianity refutes and contradicts the Ten Commandments. And it is in fact said that like there's little random things like, oh, you are circumcised by the blood of Christ. Like you don't need to be circumcised because you believe in Jesus, or you are circumcised in the heart, or they honor the day of rest right on Sunday as opposed to Saturday. And not only do they honor the day of rest right on Sunday instead of Saturday, but they also they really love idolizing human figures to the point where they make statues of people that they try to say are saints. They make statues of them and like literally idolize them for the purpose of drawing worship away from the one true God. And it was their means of deterring people from truly worshiping the Lord God of Israel, and have even gone so far as to, if there in fact is a true Hebrew faith, corrupt what has become the conventional Jewish faith that I am attempting to practice and adhere to in order that I might not only find favor with what I believe to be the God of my ancestors, but also to find favor with my righteous monotheistic tribesmen and any other tribesmen out there that who I'm related to in one way or another, who are struggling because they find themselves in oppression, and European Arab oppression and Arab imperialistic oppression. This is just such a strange story, and this is just such a strange thing that is happening to me. Obviously, I am not a descendant of King David, and I am not heir to the Davidic throne. But there's something that's rather bizarre about the validation of the Revelations prophecy, where there is also some sort of affiliation with the religious organizations of Buddhism and Hinduism. And Buddhism was spawned from Hinduism, but it seems like there's some story, as far as I know, in the Hebrew text of a prophet Elijah, in which the prophet Elijah challenges the prophets of Baal to summoning a pagan god. And when they are incapable of summoning a pagan god, they lose their lives for polluting the people of Israel with paganism. But it seems like there's these aspects of Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism in which you perceive an extension of God or a manifestation of God as a pagan idol, like they like the story of the Upanishads or the Bhagavad Gita, how it talks about like a random charioteer being a manifestation of Krishna. There's also the aspect in which the Hindus purport that this level of existence is the lowest realm of existence or the lowest form of existence. Maybe like alluding to like, the whole concepts or ideas of like hell on earth or something. And also Christianity, where they believe that Jesus is God, but he's not really God, but in fact impose Osiris possibly upon the Jesus figure, the Christian Jesus figure. And and also with Buddhism, where it is, I guess, where I have learned due to the information that I have, like the Four Noble Truths, which is like, here in this place we are men and we die. Here in this place we are men and we get sick. And I don't remember what the other two are. But at any rate, the ideas were meant to express perceptions that were rather cynical, or that kind of undermined our capacity to draw life or joyful experience from our environment. And also the aspect of being deified. There's something that that's not really associated with Judaism and with Islam called Satanism. And initially I felt like Satanism was just like hedonism, but distorted. But I guess there seems to be this aspect of it which has to do with imposing your will upon others and amassing wealth and power while simultaneously undermining the integrity of not just an individual, but their home and their community and their country. And the Satan idea, or the theory, or the ideas, or the mythologies behind Satan are not Jewish or Muslim at all. They're actually born of Christianity, which I have learned is influenced by Zoroastrian philosophy, which is associated with, I'm not sure if they're a real group of people or not, but the Farsi. And I guess it's a group of pagan Arabs that have inhabited and controlled the peninsulas of India and Yemen and Africa, as well as Egypt and Saudi Arabia. And they have some sort of association with Egyptian mysticism, because I guess the Set and Osiris mythology is a mythology that is born out of the idea where there are two forces at work in the universe that always work against each other. And these ideas were incorporated into Christianity as God and the devil, or good and evil, or chaos and disorder and order. And I guess those seem to be the ideas or the themes of Egyptian mythology. But the true story of Egyptian mythology is we don't really know what Egyptian mythology is, and we don't really know what Latin American mythology is, because we don't really know what those people thought or spoke or read. We don't understand what any of those hieroglyphs or any of those things mean. But these myths came from somewhere, which means that either there was someone who could read those languages and practice those things and believed in those things that taught us some of these things, or maybe there's someone with time travel technology that knows a little bit about it that also helped to shed a little light on it, or manipulate it, or alter the situation so that we would have this level of knowledge, or maybe not that level of knowledge. But at any rate, so it seems to me that I'm put in this situation, and I'm not completely certain of who it is that I am. I'm not completely certain of where I come from. I've been told by my father, who also had the level of knowledge and information that he had available to him, things like, we're related to people that came over to America from England on, like, on a boat that accompanied the Mayflower. I've been told that we're some sort of distant relation to a character known as John Brown, who was an abolitionist extremist who lost his life in an attempt to freeing the African Americans, and also a distant relative to Chad Brown, who made a fortune in the European slave trade and donated his property to create Brown University. I've also been told that, I have possibly Native ancestry through my father's lineage, but definitely have Native ancestry through my maternal genealogical line. And there's this other interesting thing that happens where there's this connection between indigenous Mesoamerican culture and Arab culture. And the connection is there are pyramid structures at Giza, and there are also pyramid structures in Mexico and in Peru, and but I don't remember if there's pyramid structures in Bolivia or not, but in any case, in Latin America. And although the pyramid structures have two very different purposes and were used in two very different ways, in Egypt they were monuments of entombment for their leaders, but in Latin America they were places of worship of pagan gods. And essentially, there is nothing about the pagan cultures of the Egyptians and the Mesoamericans that is truly transcended and is timeless. Their numerical systems are obsolete, their writing systems are obsolete, and their social structures, I feel like the implication is, are also relatively obsolete. Although there is some connection between the oppression that the common classes and the lower classes suffered at the hands of a priestly class and warrior class. And there is some sort of connection between keeping the common classes in ignorance to assert their own power. I also think that that might be a little bit of a warning, because I'm at any rate participating in Judaism and Islam, which is very much a priestly and warrior-based society and structure. And in my current state, I'm completely devoted to upholding the causes of, as is purported in Islam, as I understand and have learned it, the causes of the orphaned, the widowed, the oppressed, the enslaved, the downcast, and the ignorant. As far as I know, Islam was for the betterment of the Arab tribes of the desert. It brought literacy to them it brought a religious structure to them, and it was a religious structure that was oftentimes abused by people that desired power, but it brought literacy. And not only did it bring literacy, but it made people cleaner, and it also gave people standards to uphold and to stand by. And the same thing with Judaism, where there was no law and there was lawlessness, there was a standard and there was general rules that helped produce social structures. But how old Judaism and how old Islam are, I'm not completely certain. Like I said, I've been to the oldest church I think that I've been to is the Spanish Missions of California. I know for a fact that the age that my father came out of and my father's father came out of were technologically inferior, and that we are gaining momentum, and that they've developed these things called ghost technology. And with this ghost technology, we have the capacity to extend life. We have the capacity to walk through walls and to be completely invisible. They use this ghost technology to cloak, to walk through walls. They have the capacity to cure blindness, cure nervous disorders, cure things like broken necks and broken spines. They have the capacity to feed the people of the world, but nobody's feeding the people all over the world living in poverty. I mean, my father, like I said, my father surrounded himself with antiques. We had everything that was in the house was like an old table, old chairs, old armoire, spinning wheels that he didn't really use. He just kept for decorative purposes. He had oil lanterns, kerosene lamps. He had wooden clocks that he would have to wind manually and utilize. And and he used old headboards, old dressers made out of like oak or cherry wood. He collected butter churns. He collected old earthenware jugs. He collected old antique looking market signs and things like that. Like he was really with like this kind of Americana country sort of feel. And at any rate, one of the things that had dawned on me was that consumerism was something that also turned out to be some manner of assault on the common people. Because I remember, in fact, my father telling me this one point in time that when you were growing up back then and you guys went to the store to buy a set of table and chairs, you weren't just buying a set of table and chairs for a year or for like even 10 or 15 years. You were going to the store and you were buying a set of table and chairs, and that was going to be the set of table and chairs for your family for at least the next 5 to 10 generations. Now, if you go to the store and you buy a set of table and chairs, it typically doesn't last you more than 5 to 20 years, if you're lucky. And that's like you have to buy like solid wood, and it can't be that thin wood veneer crap, which is like they have a custom of making furniture out of particle board and then putting like thin veneer on it or gluing thin veneer on it. And anyway, so I'm not completely certain of what it is that's going on, but I've been somehow put at the center of this conspiracy. I'm not entirely certain of how old Judaism is and how old Islam is. I'm not entirely certain of how old Christianity is. But I know that it was a Christian culture, for the most part, that dominated the early history of America. I know that it is a Catholic culture that dominates Latin America. I know it is a Catholic culture that dominates Italy, that dominates most of Greece and Russia. I know that it is a Catholic culture that dominates Israel, essentially, and that there are all these different places in the world that the Vatican has taken over, and that there seems to be some other kind of conspiracy tied to Arab European aristocracy and hierarchy and monarchies that are behind, if not behind the Vatican, that the Vatican is behind, or there's these different conspiracies, and it has some strange connection to monotheism. And not only monotheism, but it also has some strange connection to time traveling. It has some sort of connection to evolution and to genetic engineering and to selective breeding, because somewhere along the way, people had learned animal husbandry from the desert Arabs. And those were ideas and themes that were passed on into the Torah that I have fairly corrupted version of. Maybe there never was a Torah. I'm not entirely certain. But selective breeding was an aspect of the Abrahamic faith. And that was why there was these legends concerning the tribe of Ishmael and the tribe of Israel and the tribes of Jacob. And these ideas were ideas that actually spread readily to the neighboring Arabs and the pagan Arabs, and a lot of them have celebrate their identities and celebrate their tribal lineages and celebrate their sons and celebrate being Arabs and being from the desert. But as far as I know, the noble standard of behavior comes from the purported character of Abraham, which is supposed to be the father of nations or the father of many nations, and who is a kind Arab, who is welcoming, who, if you're a stranger and you're on a voyage, would offer you water or offer you bread. Some people have gone so far as to corrupt the current Torah and Tanakh that I have access to the point where there are stories or aspect of the stories that are really impeding or impose pacifism or are extremely disrespectful to the point where they are feminizing or even just outright disrespect. Like there are stories where Pharaoh has his way with Abraham's wife and Abraham can't do anything about it. There are stories of prophets which get stoned by the communities which he is trying to, or which they are trying to save. There are aspects of the story where they refer to Israel as a woman and as God's spouse. There are aspects of the story which refer to Zion as a female maiden. And there's even accounts where King David is doing things like sowing. And there's accounts where Jacob sows and prepares meals. But I don't particularly feel like sowing and preparing meals seem to be a wholly feminine characteristic. But I do feel like maybe that somebody intended them to be in a subtle manner, or it was something that was peculiar that maybe when you study the stories of the different legendary characters of the Tanakh, that you should understand that if something is being said, then it is an important thing that it is being said, and that you should understand that somebody's trying to call your attention to something, or that somebody's trying to allude to something, or someone's trying to express something by saying one thing, but really he means something else. And what you have essentially is a book of legendary characters that were meant to condition a group of people to behave correctly. And what it is that I'm struggling with right now is I'm not entirely certain if I'm Hebrew, but know with complete certainty that I'm Arab. I'm not completely certain that I come from an organic pool of Arab material, or if I am a genetically engineered Arab. I know at any rate that there seems to be some connection between me and Germany, because the pictures that my father had of our old family were of German Christians, which I assume to one degree or another were relatively innocent and good people. My Mexican family, I don't know anything about. I know that I'm primarily indigenously blooded. I know that there is some Spanish blood in my maternal genealogy, but I'm not entirely certain of how Arab or how Spanish they are. There's stories about Arabs that conquested the Latin Americas being mixed with people that were Hebrew because of the Inquisition that happened in Spain. And because of the Inquisition that happened in Spain, a bunch of Jews were forced to convert or murdered and not allowed to leave. And so they bred with the other Spanish families. So there's, because of the Spanish, quite possibly a bunch of Hebrew strains in every area that's been conquested or occupied by the Spanish Catholic Church and by Spain. So there might be strains of indigenous people in the Latin Americas that have no idea that they have Hebrew ancestry. There might be strains of indigenous peoples of the Philippines and Cambodia that have no idea that they have Hebrew ancestry. But I'm fairly certain that there are strains of Asians and Japanese and Chinese that know they have Arab ancestry. Because there's figures in Japanese history where there's Japanese with full-on beards. And as I understand it, the beard was not an Asian characteristic, but it was a characteristic that was attributed to Arab Europeans. And because of Arab European genealogical strain, they also grow beards. And also balding, going bald, is an Arab thing. So where there are Asians that have facial hair or go bald, I guess they have Arab European ancestry. I know that Chinese and Japanese, they don't grow much facial hair. Siberians don't grow much facial hair, just a little bit of mustache, maybe a little bit of goatee. Um, and the same thing with indigenous Native Americans, the same thing with indigenous Mexicans, indigenous Central and South Americans, and Brazil, um, and all those other countries. And uh, so there has seemed to be some dominant Arab conspiracy that has taken over most of the known world and bred with the majority of the populations. I'm not certain of the indigenous people of Hawaii. I've seen like video footage of people in the past, and I remember seeing people that were extremely dark skinned, and maybe even looked rather Indian, like from India, but didn't necessarily look like Polynesians. Um, and I just figured out today that the African strains that populate the countries of Jamaica and countries of Haiti are actually not even native to those areas, which I'm maybe for some people that's really surprising. But I just like being completely in ignorance about where I come from. Had no idea that the indigenous populations of Haiti and Jamaica had been replaced with strains that are slaves to the French or the English or the Spanish. And and at any rate, if they weren't deliberately put there for spying or for imposing upon the Indians' territory, where there's like no other reason that they could possibly have to be there other than spying for the Germans or spying for the English and the French and the maybe the Germans too. I don't know, but the English, the French, and the Spanish. um, there seems to be like a lot going on with what it is that like I'm going through. Like I said, there seems to be some sort of global conspiracy involved in challenging me in some way, but the challenge isn't like, oh hey, like you want to arm wrestle? Like it's nothing like that at all. Like first of all, I have no idea who I am and where I come from. I have no idea if I am tied to any organic body of genetic material. I know I have some connection to Germany. I know I have some connection to England. Um, my family, as I understand it, was never Catholic, but they were at some point in time practicing Christianity. But the Roman Catholic Church and the Italian Catholic Church and the Greek Church refused to leave me alone, and won't leave me alone. And now that I've learned that it is a possibility that I have Hebrew ancestry, um, that I am bound to a law. And because I am bound to a law, I'm not allowed to benefit from idolatry. And I'm not allowed to submit to people that make idols of themselves. And I'm not allowed to help people who are attempting to validate the Hindu faith, the Buddhist faith, or the Christian faith and Catholic faith. Um, so there was a point in time where I was, interested in studying religion, and I studied Christianity, and I had no idea that Christianity was an underhanded form of Satanism. I had no idea that Christianity was meant to launch an assault on the mythological King David, associated with the Arab tribes of Israel. And I had studied it and never fully knowing that there was this underhanded thing that was going on here. And it is part of the reason that I, maybe in my naive ignorance, believe that maybe there's people out there that practice Christianity too that have no intention of harming King David. But I, at any rate, do not intend to harm King David, who I regard as my king, logically, because I'm being engaged by some cult and some group of people, and I have general feelings of admiration towards these monotheistic legendary warriors, and I have general feeling of loyalty, not only to these legendary warriors and their legendary tribes, but I also have relatively relatively devout loyalty to the lower classes and common classes of people that are either living in ignorance or maybe not too associated or maybe not too interested in monotheism as Jews and Muslims purport it or celebrate it, but maybe are just kind of like, oh, Satanism doesn't really sound too good to me. That devil stuff, that's weird. Or like, oh, that drinking blood stuff, that's weird. Or like, oh, those guys kissing each other, that's really weird to me. But apparently, the Greek church was involved with some sort of Arab cult in kind of making those things extremely acceptable. And they're making it also fairly acceptable to disrespect each other and to disrespect people and to desecrate those things which are meant to be sacred or holy. Generally, the common man doesn't feel like it is acceptable to impose your own will upon others. So as such, we are being forced to tolerate homosexuality. We are being faced to tolerate oppression. We are being faced to tolerate ignorance. We are being faced to tolerate. We are being forced to tolerate being influenced into sodomizing and orally copulating, and we are being forced to tolerate. We are being forced to tolerate not being in control of ourselves. I remember before before I was circumcised, I used to impulsively indulge all the time. I was at one point in time a hardcore drug addict, and I don't mean like, oh, just like some pot smoker who would drink a lot. Like, I mean, like I was injecting intravenously crystal meth and heroin, and I would smoke pot all the time, and I was drinking heavily. And when I was in the worst part of my addiction, I weighed about 167 pounds. And I would be really dirty and be really filthy, and I would steal from stores. There was a couple times that I stole from individuals. I broke into like 2 cars, and I think I stole like a used phone. I stole from people that I knew that I shouldn't have stolen from, even if they were my enemies. But at any rate, I was put in this situation, and I was surrounded by people that intended to harm me. So I stole from Best Buy. I stole from Urban Outfitters. I stole from Sears. I stole from No, I didn't steal from Sears. I stole from JCPenney. I stole from CVS. I stole from Ralph's. I stole from Rite Aid. I stole from Vans. I stole from... I stole from like gas stations. I stole from a Joplin 66. I stole from a gas station in Monterey Park. I stole from Dollar Tree. I stole from the 99-cent store only store. And I stole this Indian guy, Native American Indian, Arab Indian guy's named Dino's guitar, and I gave it to this piece of shit named Lyndon Miller. And this guy is also like purported for the purpose of fulfilling this rite. It's meant to be like my rival, but he's really like not my rival because I'm not Jesus. And he's literally got like a lazy eye, and his name is like Lyndon Joseph Miller, which is like 666. And there was like some point in time where they were saying that Ronald Reagan was, the number of the beast or something, but I don't really pay attention to that because Christianity is completely baseless. There's no authenticity to Christianity. Christianity is just completely just a false doctrine, and there's even like this thing where like Christians just say things and they don't really mean anything, or the Christian doctrine just says things and doesn't really mean anything. But But at any rate, um, I the main thing is that this is really scary because there's all this information that could be buried. We live in a modern day and time where people could essentially be buried. I actually have no idea if I'm interacting with a true reality because of the fact that the ghost technology has made it so that they can target certain neural paths in my brain to the point where it is where they are capable of generating information and sending it to my neural transmitters so that I can see things that are in the room that aren't really there. Like I can see like spiders, or sometimes like you look and there's like birds, but there's not really birds there. You just perceive birds. And I know this ghost technology makes it possible for you to remove someone's brain from the human body and keep it alive. So there could be a warehouse somewhere in Virginia where my brain is right now, or it could be a giant warehouse in Mexico where my brain is right now, where there's two different places where they could have removed my brain from my body. And I could just be convinced that I'm living here in Montreal in Canada. And the fact is I'm still in a basement somewhere interacting with a virtual reality. The other thing that's a little scary is that it's completely, we're not like completely certain of knowing if we've all been interacting with a virtual reality, because the Big Bang Theory seems to be insubstantial. The idea of everything coming from nothing doesn't make sense, I guess, like to physicists. I know that Albert Einstein popularized the equation of E equals mc squared, which means that energy was converted to matter. So at some point in time in our existence infancy, our environment's infancy, there was a point in time where energy was converted to matter. That's as far as I really know. But there's all these different theories. There's like, that's the other thing that's really weird, is that there's like all these scientists that come up with things like string theory or quantum theories that are basically essentially leading people down dead ends or dark paths that have no validity in theory or in practice or mathematically. They're teaching essentially people all these things that are wrong to dissuade them or to leave them in ignorance. There was a point in time where the world of science, and like even the world of the medical industry was devoted towards the betterment of society. You know, maybe I believe this in my naive, ignorant state, but I believe that the world of science would initially want to further man's capacity to progress as a community globally and universally. I know that I'm a connection to the proof that time travel is in fact a reality because of the pyramids at Giza and because of the pyramids in Latin America. It is not a coincidence. They're archaic writing systems, they're obsolete writing systems. That is in fact not a coincidence. And the basic outline of human history as I know it is just, there was like the defeat of the French naval forces in the celebration by Mexico in the celebration of the Cinco de Mayo, and beating back socialism, which promoted the ideas of there's no God, or free of monotheistic ideas and philosophies, which means that there was some sort of battlefront in Mexico where they were more interested in mysticism and deities than they were, in fact, interested in an oppressive socialist structure that taught them to indulge in group sex and things like that. And it is true that the Roman Catholic Church has somewhat of a reputation for being behind insult, being behind the rape of children. Part of the reason that I am in Canada is this conspiracy has raped my daughters, cloned versions of my daughter. They also manipulated me into having relationships with the woman that gave my daughter up for rape. Who she is and where she comes from and where her genealogical pools come from, I'm completely uncertain. I know that she comes from what is purported to be an American military family, but that they are essentially genetic duplicates, which are stationed across the United States for a purpose that serves the cause of some conspiracy with a political, social, and financial agenda. They've got clones of her, I guess, in Texas. They've got clones of her in California. They've got clones of her probably in Chicago and maybe on the outskirts of, Florida or Arizona. They have clones of her, what I believe to be her genetic father, and I know that they have clones of me at their disposal. I don't know entirely who they were raised by or what their intentions are. I don't believe that they mean me well because they are loyal to the social structure and social hierarchy that I am not loyal to. But at any rate, in my confusion, can admit that this hierarchy has either been infiltrated or that there is something that this hierarchy and oppressive movement desires of me, because they are in fact participating in my conditioning for loyalty, which makes me dangerous because there are people that will be trusting of me. But it is awkward because these people are also simultaneously harming me. Like I said, they raped my daughters. I don't know anything about my firstborn son. I know for a fact that they murdered my great-grandfather, or well, at the very least, he died under mysterious circumstances. And when my great-grandmother remarried, the person that she got married to was mean to my grandfather to the point where he ran away from home. And I don't really know what happened or how my grandfather got enough money to buy his estate in Michigan. But maybe there was some illicit conspiracy involvement to some degree or another. But eventually he bought a farm and he married to my grandmother. I'm not entirely sure what her real name was. Vivian is what I know my father called her by, the name Vivian. And at any rate, somebody had poisoned her and reduced her to a vegetable state. She needed to be bathed and diapered, and and after poisoning my grandmother, they murdered my father with a massive heart attack. And they did it in a disrespectful manner. They disrespectfully murdered him on the toilet. And after my father got cremated, they also influenced my sister into dumping his ashes at the ocean when the thing that he had requested of me and my sister Araceli, my half-sister Araceli, was that we dump his ashes in a river by Idlewild, or in Idlewild, which is a mountain region in California. So I don't really know what's going on. I'm in Canada. I'm working at this thing called Ultra Food. It is purported to be a Jewish company associated with the Jewish Hasidic movement, but there's also this appearingly connection, like somehow underhanded connection to Italians. I know that there's connections. The companies all have say that they have bases in New Jersey. I know that New Jersey is purported to be an Italian mobster hangout of some sort. I don't know. I mean, so is Michigan. Their purpose right now is to try to deter me from participating in Judaism and try to get me to abandon my faith. But it seems bizarre that they would put an Armenian bloodline at the center of their operation, because it doesn't seem like Jews or Muslims would be willing to participate if I was just some random Armenian, Native American, Native Indigenous Mexican bloodline, German bloodline, with no real ties to anybody. This conspiracy's managed to take over the whole world. And there's also some sort of connection between I guess the Germans and the Turks. It appears that I am being engaged by the Ottoman Empire, which I've read or I've studied, that to one degree or another is an Islamic empire that spanned the cross of Europe, and also has some sort of connections with the Islamic movement that occupied Spain and Algiers and Morocco. And I've learned that there is this group of people called the Moors that were part of the Islamic movement that supposedly influenced the Spanish language and occupied areas of Spain to the point where they have a mosque in Cordoba. But I'm not entirely certain of how reliable that information is. There might not have been Moors. There might not be such a thing as Islam. And there's like no way of me really knowing whether there is truly a Muslim organization and that I'm really being engaged by some sort of Muslim organization, or if it is simply the Vatican, which in its brilliance knew right away that I would not respond if it was simply for their own selfish financial and political goals. Because if I'm being engaged simply by the Vatican, why would I do anything except go back to Montebello and get high and masturbate in public restrooms? Because that's essentially what I spent 3 or 4 years doing, living on the streets of Los Angeles, shooting crystal meth and heroin and masturbating. And I spent the better part of my life getting high and masturbating, which is a little humorous. Maybe it's not too humorous because of all the brain damage that I've caused and how important it is for me to be capable of thinking rationally and logically and problematically, and being capable to analyze and figure these things out and engage my enemies, because I do have enemies. And I honestly have no idea of whether the messianic prophecies are true. I have no idea if there is a messianic king. I have no idea if there's a Hebrew king. I have no idea if there's a Mohammedan bloodline. The only reason that I know of an Islamic presence in America is because of this thing called the Foundation Skateboard Team, which informed me of an possible Islamic presence in America. Had it not been for the Foundation Skateboard Team, I would not know of there being any Muslim involvement in the establishment of America. I have loyalty to my indigenous genealogical cousins, which means I'm loyal to the native people of America. I'm loyal to the native indigenous inhabitants of Latin America. I'm also loyal to the righteous, ignorant, impoverished populations of Germany and England, and I'm also loyal loyal to loyal to all those that want to learn quantum advanced mathematics and learn how to really worship God. And that's like the interesting thing about this is that these people are trying to convince me that I am a messenger of God, but at the very same time it seems like by participating in this event that I am ultimately going to meet my demise. I honestly at this point have been conditioned enough to the point where I'm not particularly attached to life, but there's this strong desire to accomplish on behalf of God and on behalf of the benevolence or benevolence intention for the common classes or the lower classes of people. So something that I was taught here in Canada was that there's these lines in the Tanakh, which is be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, which were essentially commands derived from the environment. And it's been explained to me as being the equivalent of, imagine that you just wake up one day and you're out in the middle of the woods and you look around and you see a generator with gasoline and a bunch of lumber and a bunch of tools. Well, obviously, you wake up and you understand that somebody put you there so that you would build a house. So essentially, that is the same idea. We're coming to intelligent consciousness on planet Earth. And the ghost technology implies that we are meant not only to extend our lives, but travel through space-time without being obstructed by asteroids and other spaceships. Food. There is this connection between, there's this implication when you look at how a sandwich, it's 2 slices of bread, some meat, some cheese, and lettuce and tomato. And you sit there and you eat this sandwich, and it is just such an enjoyable experience. And the bread has to be milled, and the animal has to be raised and slaughtered, and the vegetables have to be grown. And there's this, in fact, this thing that is rather enjoyable. But an animal without the capacity to be intelligent would not be capable of creating those things. And there is this implication that our environment was intelligently designed, and in fact, intelligently designed. And in fact, if we are all interacting on a virtual platform, and this is a virtual reality, then outside of this place, there is still an environment where the ghost principles and the laws of physics in the environment allow for us to create this technology where we are capable of walking through walls and being invisible, and I guess what I'm saying is that at any rate, we were in some way given the capacity to act and behave and live and grow, and that the general idea or the general feeling of the environment, or me and my naive ignorance believe, as I am studying and as I'm learning and as I'm trying to grow and change, is to evolve. I'm not completely certain. I'm not completely certain if we were spontaneously evolved from monkeys by sheer will of God,
or if we were selectively bred from apes. And the other thing that is like kind of interesting is like, I guess as far back as we know, animals' behavior have been influenced and our behaviors have been influenced. But the mythology behind Judaism implies that there is another human intelligence involved with our status and our experience here on planet Earth. There's no way to really prove or disprove this, and but I've like the different paradoxes or like oxymorons that I've like been struggling with is like I mean, if King David is a real king, does he go back in time and initiate himself into being a king, or would that be contradictory? Like, would it be possible for him to go back in time and create himself? Would that completely create an altered dimension of space-time where he comes out a completely different person? Would he then cease to exist if he went back in time and turned himself into a king? The same thing with the Prophet Muhammad. Would it be possible for him to go back in time and initiate himself into being a prophet? Who engaged the Prophet Muhammad? Was he human? Was he American military? Was he English military? So there's just like all these things that are rather strange. I mean, like even having my indigenous ancestry and celebrating being of indigenous background, even with my big Arab European beard, I still celebrate being indigenous. And I mean, did the Mexicans go back in time and influence the Siberian cavemen into exploring America and settling in parts of Latin America? I mean, would that be possible? Like, would that be capable? I mean, it's obvious there's some kind of influence if there's a connection between the pyramids in Mexico and the pyramids at Giza. But the other thing that's rather strange is that whoever's in charge of modern day Mexico has severely shown negligence and disrespect for the common classes of the Mexicans. The education system is just completely terrible. The only way that you have a decent job is if it's a government job, and it's a government job that is not only negligent of the people but extremely oppressive. The common classes need a lot better wages. We're forced to accept minimal wages and accept minimal payment for our produce. And most people seem to be more interested in either our cocaine or our heroin or our child prostitutes. Nobody seems that interested. I mean, I guess they have like car parts and stuff that they spray paint there. They have like we grow chilies and we grow oranges and we grow apples, and they sell them at discounted prices in America. But the Mexican people really aren't getting paid much for those things. I mean, they grow coffee, they grow squash and tomatoes and things, but they're really not being paid enough for those labors. And I learned somewhere that every country in the world, not just one, not just five, every country in the world, its level of fiscal, its level of economic livelihood, its capacity to exist economically and compete economically is tied to its agricultural production, which means that there is not a single country in the world that that should have access to water and should have access to sun that should not be flourishing economically. So that means the countries of Latin America, where they have water and where they have sun and where they have dirt to grow, should in no way, shape, or form be suffering under substandard standards of living. And it goes the same with the African nations. If they have water and if they have sun, then they should be capable of producing agriculturally, which implies that they should also be economically sufficient and independent. And there are countries like Sudan, and there are other countries where, like in parts of India and parts of the desert, like Iraq and maybe like the Negev, where there is not a lot of fresh water, which inhibits their capacity to create an agricultural system, simply because there isn't enough water. But there are ways of rationing water, and not only are there ways of rationing water, but as far as I understand it, they have some sort of electronic system connected to satellites all over planet Earth that can control and manipulate the weather. They can make it rain. They can make it make it thunderstorm. They can make it snow, making it a lot more alarming. Whether or not I'm in a virtual environment or not. Anyway, the main point was that there should be no reason why there would be drought on any region of our planet. I mean, the surface of the Earth is covered with 70% water, and that means that, and water is a completely inextinguishable resource. It is something that only changes in form and is never destroyed. Jokingly, I used to hear somebody say, did you know that the water that you're drinking right now, at some point in time, the ancient peoples used to wash their feet in? And it's like something that gets kind of gross or whatever, right? Like if you think about it, it's just like, this water that I'm drinking came from somebody's body at some point in time. But it's in fact true, and water is something that cannot be destroyed, and that we have plenty of. And it doesn't make sense why all these desert barren countries should not have access to something that is always there and is, regardless of how often they use it, isn't disappearing. We just pour it on the ground for the plants, and it evaporates and it turns into clouds, and then it comes back again, right? So I don't really understand. But at any rate, I'm doing my best. This is kind of a long video journal, and I really haven't touched on all the different things that I want to touch on. Like my uncertainty behind Judaism, my uncertainty behind Islam, my connection to Germany, my connection to the indigenous peoples of the Americas, the Mesoamerican indigenous people, my connection to the Arabs, the desert Arabs, the truth behind the Assyrian and Babylonian and Mesopotamian civilizations, the implication that all the ghost technology and the environment implies that there is in fact a designer that designed this environment for intelligent life, the implication behind evolution, and the implication of the human state, and my desire is, even though they humiliatingly murdered my father, humiliatingly murdered my grandmother, and questionably disposed of my great-grandfather, and raped my children, like my because of my my desire to celebrate, at the very least, the aspects of my Arab culture which are associated with monotheism, which I understand that there was this point in time where Arabs just went around starting priesthoods for the sole purpose of stealing from people. Like maybe they believed those things, maybe they didn't, maybe they thought those things were true, or maybe they knew they were just taking advantage of people. I don't really know. But I am completely certain that God is real. I am completely certain that the environment is living and breathing as much as we are living and breathing. Inanimate substance, chairs, doors, rocks, trees, carbon molecules, subatomic particles. I mean, nucleuses, they all have nucleuses, right? And nucleus is meant to be like the brain center of matter, of the atomic particle or matter, or the whatever, protons, electrons, neutrons. I mean, there has to be some sort of awareness if in fact that is the subatomic structure to all matter, which we might not be entirely certain of. I was told or taught that there is some sort of connection between quantum physics and the ghost technology existing on different levels of maybe the like atomic tracks or something. I don't really understand. But I know, in fact, that time travel is possible not only because of the pyramids, but because there are stars in the nighttime sky that are dead that we still see the light shining of. So what that essentially implies is that the laws that make time travel a possibility exist as expressions in our nighttime sky naturally. And there are all these things that make being a living, breathing thing here on planet Earth so interesting and so mystical. And there seems to be some connection between native indigenous peoples of the Americas and mysticism, and seeing beyond the superficial aspect of life. Some kind of sentimental understanding of life and death, but a sheer desire of the indigenous peoples of Americas and Latin Americas to look around and see that your environment is in fact alive. And it seems to be like something that is similar and shared with some of the Arab peoples. Like there are Arab mystics that look around and say like, wow, like this is like an interesting place. Like this is interesting. This thing that is happening to us, we are now animated, living, breathing things born of the dusts of the earth, of the dust of stars. And like here we are, learning what it is to be human. And we don't know if we spontaneously evolved and we are completely precious, or if we were selectively bred and completely precious. And like I said, there's someone who's making it their desire to impede our capacity to interact and communicate intelligently and rationally, and somebody who's doing everything in their power to rob us of the capacity to see God, not only in our environment, but in each other. And there is somebody who is pacifying us and trying to inhibit our capacity to revolt. There's somebody that is giving us LSD to brainwash us. There's someone that is giving us crystal meth so that we can fornicate and kill ourselves. There's someone that is giving us heroin so we could, again, kill ourselves and fornicate or just kill ourselves. There's someone that is giving us pot because they want to destroy our brains so we're not capable of the same thing that the other soldiers or the other people are capable of. There are people that are harassing us so that we drink every day, harassing us so that we drink every time something's wrong, harassing us so that we drink when we're having a good day, when we're having a bad day, when we're having a terrible day, so that we wake up and we don't go to work and we lose our job. And there's someone who might possibly be abusing the genetic engineering and ghost technology to create genetic variations with that are impeded in their cerebral capacity or completely just incapable of competing in their cerebral capacity. Um, I know that there's some sort of operation going on where they use psychic ghost agents to make women a lot more attractive, which means that for some reason there's somebody who wants you to sleep with that person. I know for a fact that they're engineering the brains to be inhibited, because I guess like I've noticed that there's some people that like come off as really slow and really like just incapable of competing with other genetic variations around them. And I know that there's some connection to that, and not only being inhibited by whatever psychic ghost agent monitors you, but you're also inhibited by the things that they put in your state mandated vaccines. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice in this audio recording, but I hear it and I notice it, and my voice comes off as very clumsy, typically, very deep. And I was taught that it in fact is tied to a certain part of my brain which is being inhibited. I sometimes bump into things, I drop things, and I lose things a lot. And it's because I am being assaulted by the current standing chief conspiracy or global conspiracy or time traveling conspiracy. Like I said, it's somehow connected to Arabs. It's somehow connected to pyramids. It's somehow connected to space travel and to God and to stars. And I, at any rate, am not King David. And I, at any rate, am not Jesus. And I, at any rate, am not someone's pagan god. And I in no way condone those things. And it is because of the Hebrew law and because of Islamic law that I value life, and I value my fellow monotheists, and I am also willing to participate in war and participate in intellectual and social and scientific explorations. I'm fairly new to this, and I'm, forced to compete with rich kids that study at schools at Ivy League universities. I'm forced to compete with people that go to private military schools, and the best that I have really is a public school education. What little educational background I got from my father, who was a public school educator, and books, which are botched, and I have no real financial resources. I have one job, and I spend most of my time working. I spend my free time working out because these people also inhibit my capacity to work out and to fight, primarily because they want me to hurt someone so that they can arrest me, either to silence me or to further put me away because someone might possibly have been bottlenecked or cornered in some way, and would find it extremely beneficial to them to get me out of the way because they can't kill me. I should have gone to cardiac arrest about 5 years ago, but the device in my head is keeping me alive. I also have circulatory system problems, and I'm also a diabetic. I eat whatever I want, and I'm still walking. The circulatory system problems that I have seem to be tied to the Revelations prophecy, where there is like this description of a character who has feet made of bronze, which implies that somebody in fact loses their feet. And I think there might be some sort of connection to the bronze metal and the implication that is the association with the lower class, because the Revelations prophecy essentially removes the lowest classes of people from the face of the earth. Like again, I said I'm not Jesus, and I'm not David, and they are trying to impose this character upon me. But obviously I'm still got my feet, and I've still got my heart, and at least my virtual feet and my virtual heart. And I've got what remnants of my brain I have at my disposal. I'm trying my best. I avoid name brands because of child molestation and because of sexual assault in the entertainment industry and connected to the advertisement industry. I do my best to buy off brands. I'm doing my best to read and study and to really be useful to the people that I am bound to through being bound to God. And I also am. I feel like there is some connection between my existence and World War I and World War II and the American Revolution. And I don't know if the wars were staged and that the corrupt aristocracies or hierarchies used those wars to get rid of people that they were uncertain of or that they knew wouldn't be loyal to them. I don't know if I don't know how much level of control or how much level of power these people really exert back in time. But it seems rather strange because if these people had complete authority and power, why would they need to create me in order to use me to weed people out that would participate in mass ascension and mass liberation? I know that my state and my capacities are tied to a corrupt state, but I'm not entirely certain of what their true goals or ambitions are. I know at any rate that there seemingly seems to be this interaction between conflicting parties, but I'm completely uncertain of those things as well. Like there's some things that are a little alarming. Like the one thing that's really alarming is they won't let me keep articulate writing journals. Like I can't sit down and write all these things. I have to record video journals, and the video journals are obviously, because they're not analog, are extremely easy to corrupt. It is easy to corrupt the audio on my video journals, which means that if you're not in the immediate area when I record my journals, there's no way of knowing what it is that I'm saying. The other thing that is really alarming is that I am also being conditioned to kind of willingly die. I am willing to lose my life for a righteous cause, because in fact I lost my life 5 years ago when I should have died of cardiac arrest. But my weakened heart is also the act of the oppressive hierarchy, which seemingly wanted to remove me from the equation when I didn't marry Jennifer Carrillo, who was the mother of my firstborn son. And when I didn't marry Jennifer Palos, who was the mother of my firstborn daughter. I believe that the heart might also have been the work of a chief conspirator somewhere who wanted to make certain, with great certainty, that I could not remove the device so that I could not be able to perceive the people around me, or not be able to perceive the people if I in fact went back in time to see who it was that was harassing me. Because with this device implanted in people's heads, you're not completely certain of who it is that you're looking at. You're not completely certain of whether or not you even left your room that day. You're not completely certain of whether or not some of the memories that you have are real. They can implant memories. They could kill your wife and your children and replace them with genetic duplicates, and they could influence their behaviors so that they act just like your children and act just like your wife. and they could do the same thing to you, and your wife and your children would never know that you had been killed. And I'm relatively certain that there seems to be some sort of division, because these people obviously were behind the lynching of black people in America, but there seems to be two different parties in American history. And there was the group of people that were willing to accept African Americans as equal citizens, and a group of people that wanted to kill African Americans and keep them enslaved, which means there had to be two different ghost factions that occupied the American territories in order for those things to be possible. Because Africans got away during the Underground Railroad and Harriet Tubman, and and I guess that kind of alludes to the fact that there are two different factions that occupy American territory and Latin American territory. And the other thing that I was thinking that was kind of weird was that according to the purported history that I have access to, that the Muslims go and occupy parts of Spain, and Spain is occupied, and these Moors were African American Arabs, and Arabs. They weren't just, like blonde-haired Arabs. They weren't just dark-haired, light-skinned Arabs. Like, some of these guys were straight, full-on black. And black people were respected not only as equals, but welcomed, happily, for the most part, where they weren't being completely oppressive or harmful. And these Arab traders that occupy the parts of Spain must have, to one degree or another, been really charming, because they must have spoken Arabic and probably, Mediterranean languages as well, which means they probably would have been familiar with Latin, probably would have been familiar with French and Italian. Maybe not. I don't know, how intelligent they were, but they had to be intelligent to one degree or another, and at any length, polylingual, to occupy those different territories. And but at any rate, here was the Spanish occupation by the Moors, and then shortly or sometime afterward, there seems to be the subverting of the African people in status by what I believe is Portuguese European enslavement, or English European enslavement. I don't know how true that is. I don't know who was behind slavery, but maybe there's some sort of connection where black people were in Spain and everything was cool, and then all of a sudden, we're putting black people in shackles. I don't know. There was a point in time where we respected them as equals, and they were well respected, and then all of a sudden, they're not so respected anymore. It just seems a little strange. It seems a little bizarre. So I have a lot more to say. I have a lot more to contribute. I'm not dead yet, but I don't know, any day now, or maybe it's a virtual environment, and maybe I'm just helping somebody figure something out. Maybe somebody's abusing the situation in their favor. I'm constantly heckled and harassed by what I believe to be American soldiers. I have nothing but contempt for George Bush. Have nothing but contempt for his associates. I'm not particularly interested in the Bush family. I'm not interested in participating in furthering oppression. I'm questioning of essentially everyone, but at the same time, I'm completely surrounded by people who heckle me and say mean things to me about the rape of my daughter, about the murder of my father. They tell me that I'm not Jewish, and it's rather strange, because I guess there's my experience is also connected to Theodore Herzl and Anne Frank and Franz Kafka, which maybe weren't really Jews, but were Armenian Arabs posing as Jews, or I don't really know, but they seem at any rate to be subordinate to the Nazi conspiracy behind the Holocaust. there seems to be some connection between Germany and Turkey and the Ottoman Empire. And there was supposedly something called the Armenian Genocide, where the Muslims massacred Armenians because they wouldn't convert to Islam. And I am, in fact, at least to one degree or another, believing that I might be part Armenian. The idea that Jews bred with Armenians doesn't seem completely irrational. The idea that Jews bred with Yemenis doesn't seem completely irrational. And I don't really know, like I said, if I'm really Hebrew or not. But I know that things changed slightly after I circumcised myself. I'm not masturbating anymore. Ever since I've been circumcised, I haven't masturbated. I stole one time, and I paid back the money for the thing that I had stolen. But since then, I haven't really stolen. And before, I was thieving rather often. When I went under and I woke up, somebody put a slit in my penis after stitching up the part of my penis that I had removed, where I removed the foreskin. So the doctor that had stitched me up evidently was offended by me and put a slit on the tip of my penis to let me know that I am in fact still in danger and that the circumcision really doesn't change anything. Who knows? Maybe they could have raped me. Maybe they could have done other things to me. Maybe they raped my clone versions of my daughter in the room when they put me under. But there's like all these other stories about like my being exposed to like homosexuality and my being exposed to prostitution and drug use. But I'll put that in the next video. But at any rate, my name is Benjamin Wilford Brown, son of Thomas Eugene Brown, and part of my loyalty to the common classes and lower classes of people and to mankind's ascension and betterment is because of, in part, loyalty to my father. I love him. I love Thomas Eugene Brown. He was just such a good man. He was so fond of me and so caring of me. He, in fact, taught me how to write. He used to spend a couple hours with me, like every week. He would sit me down and say, "Hey Ben, come here. Let's read these books together." And we would spend a little time together. And he would read a line and a paragraph, and then I would read a paragraph. And we read Island of the Blue Dolphins. We read The Old Man and the Sea. We read The Pearl. We read Tortilla Flats. We read I can't remember any of the other books, but I know for a fact there was a bunch of books that we read like that, and and he was such a good guy. I mean, we used to go and eat McDonald's, and we used to feed the birds French fries. But sometimes there was a homeless guy there that would hang out there, and my dad would feed him cheeseburgers. We used to, whenever we moved, he used to go by the Home Depot where the Mexican immigrants were, the guys that didn't have papers to work normal jobs, and he used to give them jobs helping us move. He was a German, Arab German, maybe part Greek. I think I might be part Greek. I'm not certain. But he had an admiration for the Mexican people, or the indigenous populations. And it was something that was conditioned and influenced in him. But it is something that I don't look at with animosity, in part because I'm part Indian, and also because the Indian people there have had a right to their land and to their property, and we really had no right to be there. And I wouldn't have really minded serving the indigenous populations, but I do know that my father's first marriage was ruined by some government conspiracy when he slept with an African hooker, and after his marriage with Betsy fell through, that he was influenced into going to Mexico, where he taught English to people that wanted to go to America to work. And that was where he met my mother. And he brought my mother and her 2 daughters across the Rio Bravo into Texas, where I was supposedly conceived. I think it was Laredo. Laredo, I think, is supposedly where I was conceived. But he said that they lived in a trailer park that was literally along the Rio Bravo, and that there was like always people crossing the border, and that that supposedly that's where I was conceived. But at any rate, this is 2-hour long video journal. I'll probably come up with another one, maybe a couple weeks, a couple months. I'll touch on some of the more embarrassing and articulate on some of the more bizarre or strange things that I'm going through. If you don't get an unadulterated copy of this video recording, whoever you guys are, I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. I want to buy a tape recorder that I can record on and then give tapes to someone, but I'd also want to make copies. And I'm under so much conspiracy and government surveillance that I can't go to the grocery store and find the things that I want to buy. I can't go to regular clothing stores and buy things that won't fall apart on me. I can't take a bus without being harassed by Vatican agents or chief conspiracy agents or CIA agents. I can't really do anything. Everything that I'm doing is controlled. Everything that I'm doing is contained, even from the flyers that I hang out to the stickers that I put up to the slogans that I wear on my shirt. I'm currently attempting to study boxing, but the classes that I have available to me are really, really terrible. I'm trying to learn the basics so that I'm capable of defending myself. And and there's no real way of conditioning my body to be prepared for an onslaught or a fight, because whenever I'm boxing, my muscles, I suffer like peculiar muscle fatigue, or I'm not capable of lifting as much as I'm supposed to be capable of lifting. And I'm just doing my best, and I'm essentially just beat to relatively just mincemeat at the current state that I am. And I can work, and I can work out a little bit, and I can read a little bit. But most of my time I spend working at Ultra Food, and I'm doing this immigration thing, and I'm supposed to type up another letter and contribute evidence that substantiates my claim. Before I got here, I had no idea that I was being engaged by the English king or the English intelligence. I'm not really certain where I stand with them, because I know there's some sort of history with the English and the Germans and my genealogy. But I do have a problem with the state of the Americas. I do have a problem with the pollution of the environment. I do have a problem with them promoting LSD drug use and brainwashing the citizens of not just the Americas, but of England and Germany as well. There's like sexual like misconduct amongst celebrities and actors and actresses, and child celebrities and child actors. I guess there's like sexual misconduct in Parliament and with the congressmen in America and the congresswomen in America. And I guess some of them come from military families where sexual abuse is commonplace. And these government operations have like armies of people that are conditioned to be sexually promiscuous and sexually abusive as well, and in part because they are sexually abused from the time that they are very young, which I guess to one degree or another makes them completely incapable of being empathetic towards the general public, which is a essentially what the people in charge want, because they don't want them to be tied emotionally to the people of the general public, because they want to replace the general public with their conditioned and brainwashed soldiers. This is just like so completely just strange and so bizarre, and I have no idea why I would be important to these people. I think most people, if they were in the situation that I'm in, would be completely terrified. There's like music and movies and everything that has become to be associated with the identity of pop culture in America, and maybe in some other places in some other countries, is somehow influenced by my existence and by the ambitions of the chief conspiracies. I'm not entirely willingly participating, only because I'm not entirely certain of what their agendas are. I believe that the true righteous task at hand would be mass ascension and mass liberation for the righteous and salvageable people of humanity and existence, which means that I would have to take the poorest and most righteous and most salvageable people of places like Latin America and Iraq and the desert and Africa, and I would have to help participate in turning them into psychic, astronaut, time-traveling geniuses, and also make sure that they're capable of behaving rationally and responsibly, and and also participate in a global education system that doesn't completely institutionalize and inhibit perceptions and modes of thought, that we might be truly liberated and capable of not only farming and time traveling and space traveling, but doing it in a manner which makes us independent and unique, but not necessarily a threat to other people where it is undeserving. I'm essentially waiting for my King David. I essentially believe to be someone who is being engaged by the Prophet Muhammad, who was an Abrahamic Egyptian man, and the Prophet Muhammad did for the Arab tribes what Moses did for the Jews, and I have literally no time to do anything. I spend all my time working out. I spend a little time reading. I celebrate the day of rest. I celebrate I celebrate relatively strictly the Hebrew holidays. I'm not sure entirely about the Hebrew holiday schedule that I'm being taught. I'm not completely certain that it is accurate. But I honor Hanukkah. I've honored the Passover for the first time in my life last year. I would rather much like sacrifice a lamb, like a whole lamb, like live lamb myself, and dress it and prepare it over a fire. But obviously I don't have the access to those kinds of things here in Canada. I'm renting a subsidized apartment in a city that they call Ville-Marie. I was trying to find a place somewhere else, but whenever I look online to try to find an apartment online, I find like bogus apartment listings, and they've kind of bullied me into moving into this place in Ville-Marie, which is essentially called Gay Village, which is an assault on my reputation, as well as an attempt at insulting me because of my experiences with homosexuality, and because of religious cultures and ideas, attitude and indifference towards homosexuality. And I have a lot of explaining to do, and I have a lot of work to do, and I don't really have time for everything, and I really don't have money for all the things that I want, that I want to buy. Um, what I really want is to pursue an education. I have the right background. I have the right ability to read. But like I said, there's a psychic ghost agent that's always getting in the way. I sit down and I read a chapter, and because of somebody's inhibiting my mental capacity, I relatively just skim it over. I don't really absorb any of the information, although I touch on the information and become slightly familiar with it. I don't. I don't have the capacity to recall that information wholly. I've learned some things since I've been here. I learned some things about Judaism. I've learned some things about science. I've learned a lot of the superficial ritual aspects of being a Jew, but I'm not entirely certain. Like I said, if Judaism is even like a real thing, if there's actual a tribe of Jews, and I'm actually not completely certain whether or not this Hebrew tribe actually means me well or means the people of earth well. All I have really at my disposal is music and movies and brands to support my claim that there is a conspiracy that is devoted to putting me at the center of some ambition. I know what I know because of what it is that I've experienced and what I'm going through. I know that there are people all over the world that are men in women's bodies. I know that there's people all over the world that are men in different men's bodies. And there might be someone somewhere where there is a woman in a man's body. The ghost technology makes those things possible. I know men that get sex changes and get turned into women are being assaulted. I know that men that are being cheated on are being assaulted. I know that the general population is in danger of being replaced with genetic duplicates that are subordinate to a chief conspiracy and that have soldiers that are in far more resourceful than they and far more capable of undermining them than I just know that we're all in danger, and that my true purpose is not necessarily to get high and just waste my time, but there's someone that needs something from me, and I'm hoping and acting, believing that it has something to do with God, and that it's for the betterment of the lower classes that are oftentimes neglected or abused. There's a history of European aristocracy and European monarchy abusing the middle and lower classes of people. I am, in fact, a lower middle class Arab European. I'm also subverted to third or some sort of second class status because I'm part Indian, and there seems to be some sort of Indians that have respect that are Indian Arabs, but I don't believe that those Indian Arabs have as much power or control as pure-blooded Arabs, or as much power or control as pure-blooded Indians. I don't know if there are any pure-blooded Indians, and I don't know if any of the Indians that are around me are organically sourced or if they are completely fabricated. I don't know how much of a right or claim I have to the Latin American territories. I don't know how much of a right or a claim I have to German territories or desert territories. I don't necessarily know what it was that these people initially got involved or involved my family for, but at the moment I'm celebrating the day of rest, and I celebrate life and I celebrate God, and I'm completely intent on on trying to hold my own and earning my place amongst King David and amongst Master Muhammad, and being worthy of dwelling amongst their people and dwelling amongst the Indian people and helping to defend the Latin American territories on behalf of the indigenous. I don't know if Che Guevara ever really did those things. I don't know if he was ever sincerely interested in defending the rights of the Indian populations, but I know that there is Arab-European conspiracies that are intent on taking the Indian population's territory away from them, and I'm not okay with that. I'd like to get back all the things that they've stolen from them, and I'd like to kind of help to participate in the establishment of a better social network that caters to the necessities and the needs of the indigenous populations. And I'd like very much to participate and learn and study to understand and learn what it's like to be a thinking, breathing, evolving, learning, efficient, intellectual, rational, German, Indian, Arab, Hebrew, Muslim, and I don't drink. I don't really use drugs. I did use drugs before, and I did drink before. I'm just eager to earn my keep and to serve the people that I have a responsibility and obligation towards, and I'm eager to express my my feelings of admiration towards my God and towards the righteous peoples of existence. And I miss my daughter. I have regret for not getting to better know my son and not being more of a part of his life. I regret a lot of the things that I've done. I regret hanging out with the people I did in high school. I wish if I could go back in time, I would spend every day and every hour with my father. I would puppy dog him up and down everywhere. Like I would just follow him and go with him. I'd be waiting at home for him just to hang out with him and spend time with him and work on antiques with him and work on furniture with him. I wish I could have spent more time in Mexico. I wish I could have lived in Mexico and spent some time with the person I believed was my grandfather, growing food and taking care of cows. Something that was rather interesting that is my grandfather Wilfred was a farmer, and my grandfather Benjamin is, or my purported grandfather Benjamin was also a farmer to one degree or another. I don't really know too much else about them. I know that the stories in the Torah have something to do with me. I know that the stories in the Quran have something to do with me. I know that I don't have accurate copies of the Torah and the Quran. I know that there is a group of technologically advanced humans that to one degree or another have some sort of level of faith to God. Otherwise, seemingly, I wouldn't be alive if I, in fact, am alive. But I'm doing the best that I can, being in ignorance and being impeded. Obviously, there's people that aren't fond of me. Obviously, there's people that have every intention of harming me and killing me. And I know, in fact, that I am very much in danger. Like I said, I should be dead. And I might be going to the desert only to be put in a situation where there's least surveillance as possible to kill me and replace me with a genetic duplicate, or just to kill me altogether. But I'm going, and I am hoping to come across righteous Muslims and righteous Jews and righteous Arabs that also believe in God and that are willing to help me in my goals as I learn to what it is to be a Jew, learn to what it is to be a Muslim, and learn what it is to be a righteous human devoted to God and devoted to serving his tribesmen wherever they are so in need and so desire. Peace and blessings be upon the house of David. Peace and blessings be upon the house of Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon all the righteous tribes of Abraham, and all those that serve them and work with them in righteousness. Life is life, and life is intense, and life is weird and mystical. And maybe some people say, I know nothing about life. And maybe some people would argue, I know nothing what it is to be a slave. And maybe some people would say, I know nothing what it's like to live in poverty. And maybe some people would say, I know nothing about nothing. But I'm here to learn, and I'm here to express, and I'm here to be loyal, and I'm here to be to learn what it is to be a Hebrew, or to be a Muslim, or to be a Jew, or to be an Indian, and learn what it is to truly worship God, and to learn what God is, and what humanity is, and what the environment is, and to explore it, and to have tons of children, and to live righteously at the side of my God, and to be a righteous person. All right, bye.